Oh, hello. How's everybody doing? Hello, hello. Welcome to the We Direct Music Video presents Anatomy of a Music Video. My name is Alon. I'm a director based in Toronto, although today I am representing We Direct Music Videos. I just want to, before I introduce our panel, I want to tell you a little bit about We Direct Music Videos. And I want to thank the Toronto International Music Video Festival for hosting us today and giving us the stage to talk about stuff. So yeah, give it up for them. So We Direct Music Videos was originally founded by director Daniel Kwan from the directing duo The Daniels. You might have heard of them. They've done Everything Ever All at Once and won some Oscars. It got started in 2018 with the goal of bettering the working conditions of music video makers by focusing on three main areas. The first is minimizing free work. We believe that free work should be a choice and not an expectation. Promoting a culture of mutual respect among all parties involved in making music videos. And finally, promoting community, transparency within the industry in an effort to empower creatives with the information they need to not be taken advantage of. Since it got started in LA, there have been a few branches that opened up in the UK and South America. Here in Canada, that's us, with dozens of panels and screenings and community events across the world. I kind of forgot to put the website up on the thing, but if you do go to WeDirectMusicVideos.org, you can learn more about the history of the organization as well as current goals, and also gain access to resources. We just re-uploaded the music video database, treatment database, and we're going to talk a little bit about treatments today. If you're an emerging director, you want to look at some treatments for music videos that have already been created, some pretty high-profile videos as well. You can absolutely go on the website and check that out. There's also some links to other conversations that have been had across the world, including some panels and some interviews with people such as Dave Meyers, Hiro Murai, Flore Sigismondi, just to name drop a few. So go on the website and you can listen to those conversations as well. So yeah, I actually want to let our panelists introduce themselves. I put some of their credits up there, but if you guys don't mind, starting to my left with Eva, if you just want to say your name, if you don't mind just briefly mentioning some of the artists you've worked with. And I would love to hear from you, and this is a bit of a curveball because we didn't talk about this. I want to hear from you, what is the first music video that comes to mind that maybe kind of caught your eye or made you sort of inspired to even consider doing music videos? So yeah, go for it.
Hi, I'm Eva Michon. Hey, thanks. Let's see, I've done music videos for the most for Death from Above 1979, Miya Folick, Kazu Makino of Blonde Redhead, Andre Etier in Toronto, and yeah, a few others I can't recall right now. But the first video that made an impact on me, I don't think I was conscious of like the possibility of me making them, but was probably Street Spirit by Radiohead. Jonathan Glazer, I believe. Yeah, that's my answer.
Hi, I'm Scott Cudmore, and I have done music videos for, most recently Casey Musgraves, and I've done videos for Selena Gomez and Feist and Fucked Up and a bunch of Canadian indie bands, and probably also Jonathan Glazer videos were the first, or just like Radiohead videos. Probably seeing Radiohead videos young was probably the thing that really made me want to work in this medium.
Amazing. LeSean?
Check. Yeah, I'm LeSean Harris. Most recently, I think I've done videos for Usher, LMA, Division, folks like that. I think kind of grew up on like Spike Jones and Hype Williams and Little X. That's kind of where I found my love for music videos.
Amazing. This is Evie's second panel of the day. Evie, how are you feeling doing second
good.
panel of the day?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Yeah. My name is Ivy Stamatov. I've done music videos for The Beaches, Valley, Lilyisthatyou. I was working with Kids Help Phone with a lot of other Canadian artists like Sarah McLachlan, JP Sachs, tons of them. And I think in the 2000s, I really loved, especially the rock videos that were energy, just really getting me hyped up. And I think it was when I saw DANCE by Justice, was kind of when I was at an age where I was like, this is sick. It all kind of
with
started,
the t-shirts?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Where it all just kind
So
of
good.
culminated of like, wait, it was percolating at that time that this was really sick.
Amazing. And last but not least,
Hi, I'm Jonah. I'd say most recently I've been working with Tinashe a bunch. I did a few videos with Tate McRae and Washed Out as well. In terms of the first music video that I feel like really resonated with me, I'm blanking on the name of the artist, but I remember it was directed by Jodeb in about 2015. I just remember like it follows this dancer. It's very narrative, very much a short film almost. I remember watching it in the first year of film school and thinking, wow, there's actually, a lot of creative freedom in this medium. And kind of from that moment, I remember that put me down that path, because up until then I was like, oh, it's films or nothing. And then kind of branched off after watching that.
amazing. That's awesome. So we're going to talk a lot about the craft of music video today. I think everyone on this panel, I believe, has gotten their start in music videos, has since, either is continuing to do music videos or has sort of transferred into narrative or commercial work. But I think it's safe to say that we all sort of at one point, and even still do now, there's something about music videos that we keep coming back to that we love. I just want to encourage everyone here that if you have we're going to do our best to get through a conversation and then also give you some time for Q&A at the end. So start thinking of questions as we're talking. That way, when I do prompt you guys for some questions, you've got some stuff lined up. But yeah, I just really quickly, sort of the core curiosity behind the idea of this panel today. Music videos kind of exist in this place that's sort of commerce, but also art. It's actually one of the most unique of those types. You look at commercials, they definitely lean more commercial. There's obviously types of films that are a little bit more artful. Music videos are sort of this weird intersection. They're both. And I think it's important to note, if you're a new director, understanding that in music videos, traditionally a director plays a big role in the concept of a music video, unlike a commercial where you have an ad agency that's giving you a script, or in a film where you might be working with a screenwriter. A director really is the sort of the writer of the music video. And so there's kind of a balance there where you have to sort of balance both your own artistic expression with, label expectations, potentially artist expectations, maybe the audience. I'm really curious to know how much you guys consider your audience when you're writing music videos. So this discussion is sort of meant to see how these fine directors balance that art and commerce within the framework of what a traditional music video sort of falls into. And that's sort of where the anatomy comes from. Traditional, again, every convention is meant to be broken, but traditionally music videos sort of start with the song and the artist. From there, an idea comes up for a director. They then write a treatment for that song, and then the treatment, that's when, after the treatment is written and the artist chooses a video and a director they want to work with, that's when the process opens up and you start bringing collaborators in, you start prepping, and then from there you go into the shoot. And then finally into post-production. So we're going to try and touch on each one of those steps of each one of those parts of the anatomy and see how these different directors treat each part of the process, and we'll see what's similar, what's different. And so I think let's start actually with Eva, actually, if you don't mind. Is there something that you look for in a song or an artist that would make you more likely to want to write a music video or write a pitch?
I think that I have, there's lots of songs I'd love to make videos for, but it's like a fantasy. So when I do have the opportunity to pitch on something, typically for me, I already have a connection with the artist or they've come to me. For some reason, I just don't get the stuff that comes from some like agent. Like I don't know. Maybe the right idea doesn't come to my head or something. But typically, I'm just trying to figure out how I can make the listener like the song more or something. Like that's one of my goals, because I think a really good music video could make you like a song that you didn't even like before, if that makes sense. So adding like another element, another dimension to the music for the listener and the viewer, I guess.
No, yeah, I love that. That's great. Just moving on to Scott, like keeping that in mind, like you've obviously you mentioned working with Rihanna in those situations. Do you ever factor in the who the artist is, there's, for lack of a better term, status or popularity level? Does that ever factor into your decision of wanting to work with someone, or is it similar to Eva, where you're kind of mostly focused on like, is the song speaking to me?
I think mostly I don't think it factors in that much. I mean, I think it factors into the extent of like, I think most music video directors want to do videos for bigger artists because budgets are bigger and more people will see the work. But yeah, I don't know if it really actually does factor into like what I write, or like if the artist is like Rihanna versus somebody smaller than her. I don't know that I really think about it that much differently. And that honestly, like there may be certain ideas that will go through my head where I'll be like, oh, she would never go for that or something. But like, yeah, I don't know. I try not to think about anything when I'm writing, to be honest. I try to just like,
I wish,
see where the stream of conscious will take me.
That's fair. Do you guys like LeSean? Do you feel the same way? I'm curious if anybody on the panel feels like, because I know you're all at kind of different stages also of your careers, or different paths, you're at different parts of your journey at this point. Have you ever written a video for a song that you didn't necessarily connect with, but you felt like, this is just too big of an opportunity to pass on. I'm just gonna like brute force my way into this conceptually somehow? Start maybe with LeSean. Does that?
Good question. I think I have to like the artist or like the song, or both, for sure. Otherwise, I won't really have many ideas. But for me particularly, I've been fortunate to work with like artists that I just knew on a grassroots level, and we kind of like grew up together almost. And artists like Usher, where I didn't know them at all, and then kind of the first time I met them was on set. We had a couple phone calls or whatever. So kind of been in both scenarios, and I think it's really just working with artists that are looking to push things creatively, for me, is what matters the most. Like they could be a big artist, but if they don't want to push the envelope, then it's kind of like, what are we doing?
Not as exciting, yeah. Evie, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like being connected to the music, it makes it easier, makes it very exciting. But I also like a lot of these artists that are bigger. I find inspiration from them even if I don't like the music, because there's something to them that has brought them to that level. Not all the time. I think there's sometimes where you're like, there's nothing here. But I find it really inspirational sometimes where I'm like, you have something. I don't listen to this music, but you got something that interests me. But I agree. It's often when I'm not connecting with it, my ideas aren't also connecting with that artist a lot of the time. So it's reciprocal, I think.
Jonah, what about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I kind of have a litmus test that I like to do whenever I get sent a new song, and that's go outside and go on a walk. And if I'm walking, listening to the song on loop, and I can see visuals, then I know I want to write on it. And I find that I'm pretty open to a lot of different genres. I'm not too much in a box when it comes to the kind of music I want to listen to, and I don't really think there is like a formula to what I like to make music videos for. It really is, can I see it when I listen to it while I'm walking by my house?
Right on. That's actually a good segue into what I wanted to talk about next, which is, so we kind of got this understanding now that the song is kind of the first thing that comes. The artist, you kind of consider the artist, consider the song, see if there's a sort of inspiration there. Let's say you decide to write a music video treatment, which to me has been historically like the most fun and the most difficult part of the process. you talked a little bit about kind of going. You mentioned going for a walk, listening to the song on loop. Maybe we'll start with Eva here. Do you have like a go-to process of like ideating?
Definitely walking, listening. But then sometimes I've found that like the video has the idea has too much of that, the motion of, I don't know, like of walking, or like they're kind of all the same if I'm just walking. Driving for sure also. But I usually get one idea after walking and listening, and then I'm like, oh, that's it, that's the one, and then I have to let it sit for like a day, and then I'm like, oh, that's no good, I gotta keep going, and then it's more like looking at visuals, and like sometimes it comes right away though from the song. A few times I've been lucky where like the idea was just like one little moment in the song that gave me that idea. Like the Miya Folick video I did on the roller coaster, there's just this one scream that she does that I thought, oh, it sounds like she's on a roller coaster, and then that was just, it was it from there. And then it was just like a fight with the kind of the, not a fight, but a back and forth of like trying to simplify it and back and forth with the label and the artists of like, they wanted to do a whole thing in the amusement park and make it big, and then, you know, luckily the budget was really bad, so it helped it get like more and more refined. So if I'm lucky, I get a clue from the song itself that sparks something. Otherwise it's just kind of like letting the idea come through, kind of like getting into a meditative state.
It sounds like there's like almost like a surrendering to it in some way. Scott, you mentioned not trying deliberately not to think, which I relate to because I don't think about anything. Is I relate to in the sense that I think I agree that's oftentimes the best way. And I listened to actually a conversation with Floria Sigismondi. She was also talking about this idea of like, when along the process of ideating do you start sort of introducing like intellect and like critical thinking? And I'm curious where that comes to you, because at some point the idea has to go from idea to treatment, and you're going to have to start thinking about how to make something. But how do you know when to switch from quote unquote not thinking and letting the idea come to you to starting to ask questions about the idea and whether it's viable?
Yeah, that probably starts when I start to like write the treatment out in like in a normal way, because I start with just like listening to the song and just kind of like notes on a
you don't do the walking thing or meditating. You start right away at sort of jotting stuff down.
It depends. I don't really have like a strict process. I definitely like to drive and play the song, but often you get it in like this annoying link that you can't actually put on two devices, so then I can't drive. But I try not to think, in the sense that like I try to just hear the song and like see what images come to mind or what like ideas come to mind, but not try to think about like how do these images relate to the lyrical content, or how do they, because I don't really think that matters. That I don't even understand actually until I start maybe like writing the treatment, and then sometimes even later than that. And I try not to think about what it means, and I just kind of trust that if I'm seeing that, then somebody else might relate to it, or like I don't necessarily think it needs logic.
And has that been consistent, would you say, throughout your career, or did that process sort of change when you started out? Were you introducing that sort of critical thinking earlier?
No, I think I always kind of worked that way, because it's the only way I'll get ideas, or the only way I'll get a flow kind of going. I think as soon as I'm like really thinking too much, then I can't write anymore.
Right on. Like
similarly to how like if the song's not really resonating and I'm like trying to like force a treatment out, it won't really happen. Like if I actually just the last video I did, I think I wrote like 11 treatments for it. They weren't all like
for Kacey Musgrave.
Yeah. And that one like worked out because we had a relationship, but normally like if after I've written like 2 ideas, then it's like still not happening, then I'll usually stop.
You say 11 treatments?
I wrote 11 treatments for
God.
Cardinal. They weren't all like brand new ideas. Some of them were just like variations, but it took like that to like get to where it was. And so
Um,
some of those were just like, I wrote something and she was like, yeah, I love it. And then the label was like, we can't afford that. Or
right.
so
right.
we'd have to go back. But yeah.
But this is another good segue. So, LeSean, I'm curious if you if you identify with that as well. Do you, and also if you can touch a little bit on, because I've heard you speak before about like balancing. Sometimes artists come to you with an idea as well. So it's not just you kind of thinking up an idea from scratch. You're getting some kind of guidance from an artist. How do you sort of balance those two elements, like giving the artist what they want when in this sort of ideating phase? And then also, I'm curious about your processes in terms of like just the ideating. Does it involve some sort of physical activity? Are you meditating? Like, what is your process?
Yeah, I don't think I have a strict one either. I'm a little bit on the opposite end of the spectrum, probably though, where I'll often try and find something in the song, like a bar or something that really jumps out, and then this is more so for my process, but I found videos that I'm the most excited about, either myself or videos that I've watched, is when you're able to find like some sort of bar in there, and then if it's like conceptual, metaphoric, flip it on its head in a way. I think like a really good example of that, that's not my video, but like Kanye West's Flashing Lights is like that. You know, the chorus goes, as I recall, I know you like to show off, but I never thought you would take it this far. And if you just like look at the video, it's very, very simple, very stripped down. Beautiful woman, fur coat, comes out of the car, parked off in Hollywood Hills, burns the fur coat. I know you love to show off, pops the trunk. Kanye West is bound. Pummels do with a shovel, but I never thought you would take it this far. I find like when you can find that flip is usually when you'll like have like a pretty magical idea. And that's usually when a video will go. So often I'll look for those things. But if it's an artist and they have a brief, which happens often for sure, I'll try and do that similar thing, but with what they within the playground that they want to work in. So,
Evie, what's the balance? Would you say with the work that you're getting, in terms of concepts that you have to come up with, sort of in a vacuum, versus like getting an actual brief from an artist? Like I'm thinking of like you've worked with the Beaches, with Valley. Like, are those ideas? Did those briefs come to you with like a preset concept, or are you coming up with these ideas?
Yeah, with those artists, it's kind of nice because they came to me and they were through mutual connections and had like a one-to-one relationship with them. So being able to massage it with the artist is awesome. I think both of them were so like willing to just release any control and be like, what do you think? And I think because they all would be like, these are my ideas, but like totally open to you. And they were like, I don't know, you know? So, which is nice. A lot of times when there is a brief, it's like maybe like, okay, I really need a performance, or I really need or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of nice to be able to connect with the artist. I've been really lucky, honestly, like almost all across that I'd be able to. And they've trusted me, which is awesome. I think for me, I like try to like, yeah, go for a walk, listen to the song over and over again, and I really just try to let it kind of like pour through me and kind of like experience it. And then I know there's usually a moment where like this little almost like rabbit of an idea or like a mouse of an idea scurries, and I'm like, oh, and then it kind of starts running away, and you kind of have to like catch it. And then I start trying to like chase that down. And if I need to, then I'm grabbing the pen and paper. Maybe if I need to massage it more, I'm doing associations or looking at other things. But it's really catching that little thing, because it's fleeting, almost like a dream, kind of.
Sick. Jonah, has there ever been a situation you can recall where an idea from an artist came to you, but you really wanted to work with that artist, but the idea was awful? You don't have to name names, but I'm just curious, like how do you? I guess have you been in a situation where you feel like I can do something with the song, but whatever concept is being already sort of pre-baked, or was you've been approached
from like their brief.
Sorry,
like the brief that they give.
Yeah.
It happens a lot. And then like I just find it's sometimes I'll pass, but oftentimes if I'm not doing anything, I'll just write the idea I want to pitch. And the way I see it, in the very, very unlikely situation I do get the job, I'm glad I spent the time. But more times than not, I'm just happy to have, put an idea on paper, and I'm sure everyone up here will agree, the idea never disappears. Once you write it and you don't get the job, you put it in a little folder on your computer, and then you save it in the back of your mind, and you wait for another song where it feels like you could adapt it and put it in. So we're always recycling and modifying ideas, so I don't really see there being wasted time. So I'll always try and pitch the best idea I can. But I also like the idea of having a brief. It gives me something to work off of. Nothing is worse for me than seeing open brief, because they have an idea, they just haven't put it in words. So you can pitch anything and it's not what they want. At least when they put it on paper, you can kind of cater what you pitch towards what they're thinking of. So I do like specificity when I got briefing decks.
I'm glad you brought up like sort of naturally kind of recycling ideas when they don't necessarily work for a specific artist, and that's the type of stuff that I wish I'd heard when I was starting out, because I remember distinctly having this like, oh my god, every music video is sacred. I can't this concept could only work for this song and this artist, and for a long time I was deliberately trying not to recycle ideas, and then after writing 300 treatments, you're like, oh, maybe there's something back in the vault that I can reuse. So this is a good segue to writing treatments. Eva, how do you feel about, like, in your mind, who is the treatment for? Is it for you? Is it for the artist? Is it for the label? Is it for the crew? Like, well, what do you see this sort of document as?
Well, I see the music video treatment as very different for me personally than a commercial treatment or a narrative pitch or something, because I personally, they're very short for music videos. They're like a couple references, it's some writing, and it's something I verbally, like, we've at that point I think had a conversation. So it's really just to get a couple sort of references aligned. But I guess I'm lucky. I've just had like a lot of trust, or it's just that there isn't the time or the budget or something. It's kind of just I don't know what it like. I haven't actually thought about it until you were like asking or said you would ask about this. But yeah, my music video treatments are like negligible. They basically don't exist. So
I love that answer, because it's the opposite for me. So I'm curious if Scott, how do you feel about music video treatments? Is that, like, do you see them as in the same way, or do they mean something different to you in terms of their role in the process of making the thing?
I think they're pretty much just a formality for me, I think, or like a way to like sell the idea to an artist especially if you don't have a relationship with that artist. But in a vacuum, I don't think I would ever bother with one.
Really?
It's not something like, I'd rather just like scribble on paper than like put a bunch of reference images.
I love this.
Yeah, it's not. But I think it's a super useful tool,
yeah,
obviously. But yeah, it's not for me.
How about you, LeSean?
Yeah, kind of a bit of the opposite for me.
Right, yeah, same.
I use it as a blueprint, and I use it as a way for me to figure out what I'm doing. It's really hard for me I have to like see the whole thing. So the treatment's an opportunity for me to see the whole thing. And I would say for me, I guess it's like, obviously you're writing the treatment for the artist and you want to get the job, but similar to what you were saying, it's like, if I really like an idea, I'll just write the idea, and if they like it, they like it. If they don't, it's all good. But I use it as a blueprint.
How about you, Evie?
Yeah, I'm a little bit in the middle. I use it. I don't go full out, like in detail, everything, planning everything out to the minute, unless the like concept really needs that. But it does help me organize my thoughts, and it's something for me to go back to as we go into pre-pro, and it's kind of like my North Star, or at least a starting point. But I do like to keep a little bit of ambiguity or space for the other key creatives to take that idea and put their spin on it as well, because I'm not a makeup artist, I'm not a stylist. I want them to be like, this is the concept, I'm gonna elevate it, this is what I was thinking. And then you have a bunch of different creatives that are collaborating together and making something that is even better than if you were to have full total control. That being said, sometimes you do want it. It just depends, I think. Depends on what the video is.
What about you, Jonah?
I definitely lean closer to Scott and Eva, where it feels like a formality. I think for me, all I really would want to do if I didn't need to sell someone on something would be to put together a beat sheet with all of the time codes figured out and just do it in my chicken scratch. Something I find a little bit more valuable, and I feel like LeSean, you probably do the same because we both work with Nick. Nick, an editor, he's great. He and I on recent videos have been putting together previses where we talk about the scenes and how we want to break it down into each section of the song, and we just do a video instead with time code and then that beat sheet in video form. And I find for me, it's a far more useful tool for communicating with departments. But when you need to sell an artist, you need to make it pretty, you need reference images. In my mind, I don't really feel like I need reference images, but you have to show the artist what you want to shoot. And then one other thing is it does feel like more often than not, the actual treatment is never what the video is because the ideas are so ambitious and the budget is never there. So I feel like maybe 2 or 3 times has the treatment fully lined up. It's so many things come up like in pre-production and it changes and you rewrite and you ultimately divert from the treatment.
I just love the sort of the spectrum here between all of you because I also sit somewhere else on the spectrum, and I think it just goes to show that despite the sort of formal process that I just outlined about, you know, an idea goes into a treatment, yada yada yada, a treatment can be so different for different directors, and quality work gets made, and everyone has their own process, and I think that's kind of beautiful. That's kind of amazing. I'm curious if it comes up for any of you, is there a specific treatment that you remember writing that's particularly unique, or like a time where you like really deviated from the way that you communicate an idea to an artist? That was like, I've heard of stories of people like making videos, you know, just recording themselves describing the idea. I know the Daniels kind of famously would do stuff like that. Is there any sort of an instance in your careers where you remember utilizing this tool differently than what you would normally use it? I'm seeing LeSean nod.
Yeah. I guess completely opposite what I just said. But this was early on. I was doing a video for Division, and I had a really good relationship with them. So we were just in the studio, and they were playing a song. It was called Mood, and 85, the producer, was just like, we should shoot a video for this. And I just had the idea right away. And I just pitched him the idea on the spot, and he was like, I love it. That's great. And we just went back and forth on text message, and we never wrote anything.
Amazing.
But the text messages were still like very detailed, I guess, but there was no treatment. There was no anything. I don't know how they got the budget from the label, because I don't know, maybe showed them the text messages. I don't know what he showed them, but we literally didn't write anything, no references, nothing.
And you made the video.
And we made the video.
I love that.
Mind you, it was a one-er, so it didn't really require too much like talking through, because like everything was one shot, but we just really focused on like the beats, like this and this and this and this is gonna happen, but it was all text message.
That's amazing. Yeah, go ahead.
When you listened to the song, did you say it was in the studio, or what was it? How did you listen?
Yeah, they played it for the first time in the studio, and like Daniel was still like trying to like figure out the lyrics even, but they knew the essence of the song, and I don't know, I just like had an idea instantly, and I just said it like very casually, and Paul like locked in. He's like, oh, we should do that. And then we just kept bouncing back.
I have a similar weird, not as great story like that, where an artist invited me to their studio to listen to like her new music. And then we were like hanging out, and it was like a vibe. And she's like, just listen, just tell me what comes to mind. And then I was like, well, yeah, instantly had ideas. I was like, well, this video should be this video should be that. And then we just like hung out. We had dinner after, and then like I didn't really talk to her. And then I found like a few months later, she like made a video that was like,
whoa, we don't like that.
But I wouldn't have wanted to make the video anyway. Like some video, like you get the idea, but you're like, I don't even want to make that. It's like if you pulled it out of the sky, and then it's not necessarily for you to make or something. So I wasn't bummed. I was just like, well, good for her for listening to an expert. So.
That's amazing. Just staying on treatments just for a little bit longer. I just wanted to ask, because Jonah, you had mentioned recycling ideas or whatever. Do any of you have a specific memory or a thought of a music video that is a recycled idea that was meant for somebody? And if you're allowed to mention who those are, because I think that would be curious. I'd be curious to know if there's an idea that you came up with for one artist, they didn't go for it, and then it ended up being a video for someone else. Does that happen? Maybe start with Scott, and then we'll go to Jonah.
Yeah, the video I did for Selena Gomez was, I just wanted to like I'd had that idea before to like remake Pierrot Le Fou, the Godard film.
Was it for someone else though? Did you ever pitch it for anybody else?
I can't remember if I ever pitched it. I definitely like written it in sort of treatment form for somebody else before.
Okay.
But it was just that like, and it was probably different. Like the execution of it was different. But that was an idea that I'd had for. I just wanted to do that, and then finally did it with it. It wasn't recycled.
The idea was kind of like the
idea
idea was
was like
somebody, and then kind of
Yeah, no, I think I had like written it out for another artist like a year or two earlier.
Do you remember if the artist was anywhere close to Selena Gomez? Like, was there any?
I don't remember who it was.
Okay.
I don't think it was somebody as big as Selena Gomez, but it was just like
Yeah, don't give up. Don't give up on your ideas. Anybody else? Any thoughts?
I definitely have like a big that folder of like old ideas. It's like
I
the
know.
best.
I think Vincent Haycock once posted a screenshot of all of his failed pitches, like just the file names. So just like said the names of the artists, and it was like just like hundreds and hundreds of treatments. And I thought, I'm like, oh good, I'm not the only one. And anyways, Jonah.
The first video I did for Tate McRae was a recycled idea. I don't even remember the artist I pitched it for, but it got to the point. I remember like the original artist couldn't have been more than like a $4 or $5K budget, and it was really tight. I shot a proof of concept at home for it, and then I don't even think we heard back. We didn't even get the no. We just didn't hear back. And then like a year or two passed, and I just got the opportunity to write on this Tate video and had like 2 days to do it. And I was like, oh, this could work really well. And I had the proof of concept already shot. So I had that in the treatment, which I really think helped sell through the visual gag we were doing for that. And that was honestly the first big video I ever did, was just through that, lucky situation that I had all this stuff ready to go and was able to like put a lot into the treatment that I wouldn't have done if I hadn't had that idea.
Didn't you have, Jonah, you told me that washed out eclipse video, you had that idea for years, and you were just like, when the eclipse comes, I'm going to do this video for someone.
If you haven't seen it, a video for Washed Out
Amazing.
that Jonah did this year during this solar eclipse, yeah, it's all shot like in real time during the eclipse. It's really cool.
Thank you. And in 2017, me and my family just road tripped up to Nashville, and I saw the eclipse there for the first time, and it resonated with me in such a big way that in that moment I was like, 2024, I need to find a way to make this happen. And then like 3 months before the eclipse, I was like, it's not going to happen. And then
did you actually pitch it? Did you get a chance to pitch it to anyone else, or was it 3 months it was coming up and you're like, I just haven't found anyone?
It was coming up. I'd had dinner with my rep Cheyenne, who also reps Scott over there, and I'd been talking about this idea, and then it just felt like the perfect amount of things lining up, because like a couple days later she sent me this no budget washed out pitch where they wanted to do live videos in Georgia, which is not where the eclipse was. And we basically just got on a call with the artist and the label and floated the idea. And they were really against it because of the risk factor of trying to do a video that you can only do one take that has to start at a specific second of the day. And then we just kind of wore them down over like a month of nonstop phone calls until they finally said yes.
I have a very specific question about that video, and you can lie if you want to. Did you ever at any point tell them, it's okay, we can like tweak it in color correction and make it look like it's getting brighter and darker? Or was there ever?
Similar to that, we basically told them that worst case, we don't get it. They still get a live video just shot in the middle of the day.
Awesome. Amazing. Okay, so moving on from the treatment, unless anyone else has like an interesting story about that. But moving on from treatments and ideas, you've sold the idea through. You've got this great concept. Who's the first collaborator that you call to talk through the idea? Just for convenience, let's start on this side with Eva.
I probably just talk to whoever's the closest to me, which is my husband, most likely.
This is after the idea is already sold and you're ready to make.
Oh, when it's sold.
Yeah, I'm just curious about collaborators. That's okay. Collaborators that are about to kind of jump on to help
the
you make this thing.
The DP.
DP is your first call?
Yeah.
And how come?
I don't know, because they're your partner and you have to beg someone basically. So you put the most energy into figuring out who owes you a favor. No, I'm just joking. Who, or sometimes it's already someone you just worked with and you kind of want to keep the conversation going. So yeah, it would be.
And who is that person for you? Like, is there any DPs that you, cinematographers that you normally work with? Regularly?
No, it changes a lot. Yeah, I like working with a lot of different.
Like completely new. So every project is a completely new DP, or do you kind of have a roster?
I guess I have my own personal roster of DPs. Yeah, it depends on where the video is shooting, right? That's probably the first thing. If it's in Toronto, I think of, the DPs I've worked with and who sort of stylistically would fit. Or it's like a gut feeling. And then, yeah, you just call them up, send them the idea. And then if they react, then you start talking. And it's usually like an instant yes or no. And yeah.
How about you, Scott? Who's your first call? Is it also a cinematographer?
Yeah, probably. If it's not, it's like a producer talking through it with a producer and then telling me, what did you do? We can't afford this. And then, yeah. But yeah, I think it's the DP's the closest relationship, at least usually. So yeah.
Do you feel like it's because music videos are just so innately like visual that your first thought is, I'm going to let's figure this part out first? Like why do you think it's like the cinematographer that's the first call?
Yeah, I think that exactly for that reason.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering if any of you are like, okay, well, I'm going to start with production design and then go into. Do you ever, LeSean? Do you ever approach it differently?
I agree. I think it would be the DP, but I would say DP and editor.
Okay.
I had often talked to them before, sometimes even pitching. Like maybe not all the time for music videos, but just in general, like I'll have a lot of conversations with Nick before even pitching stuff.
And are these regular collaborators? Like, do you have DPs that you'll work with regardless of the video, or are you similar to Eva? Like, you're like, I'm going to work with a different person each time.
I like to work with the same people when I can.
Want to shout them out?
As best as I can. But people that I'll like call oftentimes before projects would be like Nick or Adam. I think he's here. I think that's him there.
Shout out to Adam.
Yeah, Adam Madrix. So like, I just try and talk to the people that I'll have to deal with, and create with closely as early as possible.
Cool. Jonah, Ivy, are you guys in the same boat? Like, is the DP the first call?
Depends on the project. I think, also the editor. Yeah, I think it depends on what the concept is. Or it could also be if it is a really art heavy piece, then yeah, talking to the production editor. If it's a dance piece, talking to the choreographer. Just because it informs so much. But I think editor and DP, yeah, for me.
Yeah, pretty similar. I think for me, definitely. I guess it's before we get greenlit, but the producer, because I need to make sure that I'm not completely off the mark with hitting our budget. But after the producer greenlights and says that we can more or less pull it off, it does just depend on what the project is. The last one I did was all in the art, and the cinematography was pretty straightforward. It was just pretty consistent throughout. So first call I made was to the production designer to talk about like build specs and how much hallway we can afford to construct with our budget. But then, yeah, sometimes it's more cinematography, and then more often than not, it is Nick or an editor just to build that previs, because you can really figure out what you can cut once you talk to an editor.
Have any of you been in a situation where, and this is maybe where the commerce part of this equation comes in, but where somebody on the record label or on the artist side is trying to dictate, or at least trying to advise or trying to push for specific collaborators, where you had to work with a DP or had to sell a DP to a label to work with because they were, for whatever reason, uncomfortable? Has that ever happened? I'm seeing Jonah nod.
Yeah, it has unfortunately happened to me, and you just kind of have to smile and say, sounds good.
And do you just go with it, or you just like, sounds good, but I'm going to still do my thing?
You have to go with it. Luckily, the one...
What was it?
I don't want to say any names, but yeah.
But was it a DP? Or
it was a DP. Yeah, and
it was a DP that you wanted to work with, and the record label was like, what about this person?
It was the creative director, more specifically, but the record label had worked with a certain DP on the previous videos in this artist campaign, so they felt comfortable with a certain DP, so that's what we kind of had to do.
And in that situation, the DP that they were comfortable with, were you feeling like, okay, I can work with them,
Yeah, it ended
that
up
worked out.
working out super well, and we worked together on a bunch of projects after that too.
Yeah, has anybody else been in that situation? No, where
Have you?
you guys are like, yes. Oh my God, choreographers as well. I've been like, you have to work with this choreographer, or you have to work with this
Like a celebrity would come with their own team.
glam for sure. Yeah, so glam, hair, makeup usually when you're doing a pop video, something like that. But no, I've definitely had to fight for some DPs to be on a shoot. But I like that it's, again, it's a very varied experience for all of us. And I'm curious what, because you haven't had that experience, I wonder what the magic is that you two have. Yeah.
I've had to be the one that had to be sold a few times. So where it's like, it's more so the label wasn't sure if I would be able to do the job. So I've had it happen with like me.
Oh, and so who was vouching for you? The artist?
The production company and the director that they wanted to originally do the video. Like I've done like the Usher video that I did was originally meant for X to do.
Oh, okay. I
And
did not know that.
the label was like, no way, like it's too big of an artist. There's two big artists, But I had done like 5 versions of the treatment, and I think like, I don't know, maybe Usher just was like, he's like deep in, he's committed kind of thing, So it was like, give him a shot, and it worked out fine.
That's amazing. It's great when you have people who are, believe in you and are going to vouch for you in that situation. So that's amazing that ended up working out. But that is also, being on the other end of that,
because you come into set like people are already, doubting you, which is tough being in the director position where it's like there's people on set, they're like, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to swallow it.
Eva, have you, because you also do a lot of commercial work as well, where I think it's safe to say probably there's more oversight maybe on the client, not oversight, but maybe more input on the creative direction from client or from agency. I'm curious, when you approach a music video in terms of like the way that you storyboard or shot list, is it different for you on a music video versus a commercial? And if so, in what way?
Yes, it's different. I definitely, let's see. Well, do you mean like the oversight thing? You mean like, is the label like paying attention as much as a commercial client would be paying attention?
Yeah, or do you feel like I imagine, and again, I'm making some assumptions here, that on a commercial you're almost expected to storyboard, you're almost expected to have a lot of stuff going into it because there's a lot of stakeholders, whereas on a music video maybe it could be a little bit more run and gun, a little bit more fluid with how you shoot.
Well, I storyboard everything myself for music videos, and on a commercial, typically everything is outsourced to an expert. So like a storyboard artist would be hired, and sometimes I get away with storyboarding my own commercials, but it has to be like the client has to be, because my drawings are kind of funny, and so the client has to be into that. But yeah, on a music video, I do storyboards for, it's like I don't do a treatment really, but like the storyboards are very clear. So
very cool. Miya Folick video, you mentioned the roller coaster one, which is a video everyone should go watch. It's great. Did you storyboard that one?
Well, yeah, I think there's like 3 drawings because it's pretty much just a girl on a roller coaster looking into the camera. But that one was more of an engineering thing because I wanted it had a lot of planning, like for her to hit a certain point on the roller coaster when she was singing a specific part of the song, and then we rehearsed it and with just the roller coaster going through, but then didn't account for if you added people to the roller coaster, it would actually slow it down. So like there are all these like timing things that were really fun to figure out. But yeah, that one was very minimal storyboard. Yeah, for that one.
Scott, what about in your situation when you're working with somebody like Rihanna, for example, is the one that I think of? Are you approaching this differently than if you're doing like a lesser known artist? Like, are you doing more prep, more storyboarding, less storyboarding? Is it all the same?
I've never storyboarded a music video.
Love this. Okay.
Storyboards are not something, again, I guess kind of like a treatment. I wouldn't do it. And I do it on commercials. At every commercial job, I do a storyboard. And when I have it, I find it useful. I like make notes on it and use it, but I don't ever do it on music videos. I've never been asked to do one for a music video. And yeah, I don't know.
That's fair.
It's like one of those.
Yeah.
It's like one of those tools that I do appreciate having, but without the requirement, like you need it because you need to present it and talk through with client. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, no, and I think that's valid. It's something that I'm getting about sort of the different process that I'm noticing here, and I'm curious, LeSean, do you storyboard your music videos ever?
No, I never storyboarded.
No,
for a video. I would use like a very light. I've done like light previs for
Right,
sure.
okay.
But I never storyboarded.
What about Evie and Jonah?
No, I can't. Especially on music videos, I can't draw. So like no. One time I did a text animatic, which did help.
Oh, very cool.
But I had already beated it out on my treatment, so it was kind of just putting it to the timeline. I can't draw, but they are helpful. Like when you have them, it's a helpful tool. But I can't do them.
And Jonah, what about you?
Yeah, same thing. And there's never like room in the budget to hire an artist, so it's the same as LeSean. I'll do rough previs if it's like a big oneer or something, but more often than not, it's kind of just in my mind.
I think, especially with music videos, which is kind of my takeaway here, is that everyone sort of has a different process, and I think it's worth considering that like protecting that process for yourself seems important, because it sounds like to me, I think the idea of going into a shoot without at least shot list or like super meticulous planning, like that's just my process. I like going in, but I also very much appreciate the idea of not doing that. And I think that when I was younger, I would have probably listened to some of the varied answers here and be like, how are you getting away with this? Like, I could never get away with this. But the truth is that like, it sounds like each of you has sort of done a good job of protecting your own process. And that's kind of what the artists and the labels that are working with you are sort of kind of acquiescing to your process in that case. They're sort of trusting that this is how you like to work. Do you feel like that's been consistent?
Yeah, I've never had a lot of like talking about oversight on music videos. I haven't had much, like not like on a commercial where like there's oversight all over the place and everything gets talked through and worked out and approvals. And mostly every video I've done has just like once the treatment's approved and the artist is saying like, yeah, we want to do that, then it's just kind of like as intimate process as like a
Amazing.
personal project, really.
All right. Let's move on to the actual shoot day. And this one I'm actually curious to know if there's a lot of variations here. And it's sort of a broad question, but I'm curious, Eva, we'll start with you again if that's okay. I know I'm putting you on the spot with the first question each time. I'll try and vary it up. But like, what do you see your role as a director on a music video set? Like, what is your job? What are your responsibilities? What do you see yourself as when you're on set?
Well, I'm just guiding the ship, I guess. I'm trying to put it eloquently. You're basically just fighting time and trying to keep everyone positive. And but in theory, you've prepared so much before the date that it should just be mostly execution and fun and staying on schedule. So, but trying to keep vibes, going, especially on a music video.
I was gonna say, how many of you
vibes.
feel like your role on set on a music video specifically is sort of tone setting? I see Jonah nod. Is that sort of?
Yeah, it is for sure.
And how does that what does that look like for you? Like, what does that mean for you going on to it? I'll use the Tinashe video as an example. Like, what are you thinking of going into that shoot?
I think for me, it's just like internalizing everything that goes wrong. That the nasty video specifically, shout out Adam who shot it over here. A lot went wrong that was out of our control, involving weather, driving 2 hours outside of LA to get to that desert location, which then eats into our shooting hours. Shooting in February, so the sun set at 6 p.m., dancers having a hard out, and then it being too windy to shoot on Steadicam, and then to top it all off, it rained. So as a director, you're there just internalizing everything that goes wrong and not letting the artist see that you're freaking out. So yeah.
Right. What about you, LeSean?
I think I grew up playing sports, so I kind of look at it like being a quarterback or being a point guard on the day in a lot of ways. For videos that I've done where I haven't actually met the artist in person until the day of, the biggest thing I'll try to do is build rapport with them like immediately. I think they just have to trust you, and if they trust you early, the day will go well, and if they don't trust you early, it probably will not go too well.
And what about you, Evie? How do you look at it going in?
Yeah, the same. I think definitely, yeah, setting the culture, setting the tone, keeping it positive, and not letting anyone see if anything is going wrong. Because the second if they smell blood in the water, I think their panic starts to set in. And yeah, keeping on schedule and not cutting. I tend to AD myself sometimes if I don't have an AD, and I cut my shots. So my editor comes to set now, and she tells me to not cut that shot because she needs it. But yeah, and yeah, really rapport with the artist, and pushing back on staying true to the vision and just being like, no, like this, anchoring back to it. Because if you don't, you look back and you're like, I should have done that. But be nice and fun, and yeah,
just like good vibes, but also make sure being as ruthless as you can and keeping sort of that vision,
confident, and yeah, because otherwise they if you look like you're wavering, then they don't believe you.
Yeah, I think it's also good to like start with like a sexy setup. Always try and start with a setup that I know is going to be
just define sexy setup.
Something that's going to be like visually intriguing, like visually stunning. Start with that, because the second they see a first take and they're like, okay, cool, you got it.
This is I love this advice for anybody listening, is this idea of starting with the setup that you're most confident in, because if you get a win earlier in the day, the rest
everybody
of the momentum
calms down. Everyone says, okay, you got it, you know what you're doing. The DP knows what they're like. The people that you can tell are a little not sure how the day will go, everyone just calms down if you start with a setup, if you can, if your schedule allows for it.
What was your first setup on the Usher video?
The first setup on the Usher video.
They say it was the Snoop Dogg scene.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. We had, they were like, we had an hour and a half with Snoop, and then he was late, of course. And they're like, you have 45 minutes hard out. No matter what happens, he's leaving. And I was like, okay, cool. I've never met her in person. He came in and he was getting ready, and he had like a few options. And he's like, what do you think I should wear? And I was like, oh, okay, cool. It's like my in to like, soften him up. I was like, oh, you should wear this. Like, wear the tracks. He's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah. And then me and him were cool from there. But we started with the kitchen scene, which was like good, but it was a bit complicated. It was a lot of art. There was like 2 extras, plus Usher, plus Snoop. So it was a lot of moving parts, and obviously we had to shoot it in half the time. We got it done and it was fine. But I think it was an example of like starting with a big setup and seeing that I could handle it. And then everyone was like, okay, cool. It was funny. It had a little moment. So after that, everyone was kind of gelling and chill.
I think you've all have worked on performance-driven videos at some point. I'm curious to know, maybe we'll start with Evie, because I'm thinking of like the Beaches videos and the Valley videos too. Like, what comes to mind when you think about directing performances for artists? I mean, they're coming in with their own idea of what they think a good performance would be. What are you looking for when you're standing there looking at the monitor and you're seeing a performance? What are you watching out for, and how do you direct, I guess?
I mean, I think the artists usually they know how to perform. That's what they do best. It's actually their most comfortable state. Is if they have a guitar in their hand, if they're a guitarist or whatever. So I actually use that as my cheat. If they are kind of feeling cold off the top, I'll be like, okay, put them in the guitar and have to do the guitar scene first, because they're gonna get super comfortable. I think on the monitor, I'm looking for that feeling of going, yes, let's fucking go. Yes, this is sick. I feel like I'm watching the artist that I like would want to watch. And I don't know. I usually find that the artists, they give it. They're pros. This is what they do. This is what they love.
Have you ever, any of you, been in a situation where you felt like you were getting an artist who was like maybe tired or not on their game, or was showing up and the performance was not necessarily what you were looking for?
Just quickly, I think Lilyisthatyou, pop artist, again, very much that their image is their thing, right? I think at the end of the day, she was feeling tired, and I think the look that she was getting for this big scene was not like, she wasn't feeling it, and it was just like, okay, that's it. She doesn't feel like she looks good. Let's pause, get her back into makeup. Let's fix it. Let's fix the hair. Just finding what is important to the artist and really keeping that integrity. Yeah.
I would agree. The most important thing is making them feel like they look good. like making sure they feel confident, like their hair looks good, their hairline, their makeup, their body, like whatever, like that the clothes are, that they will look cool or hot or sexy or whatever. If that's where I think, the crack.
This is what she was telling me before we got on stage.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
like, wanted to make sure I
like you look great, and
don't worry,
you're
everything
gonna
will be
do a
fine.
great job. You look, So that's what I would say. It's like getting them, because they look amazing, but if there's something, if they're having a bad day or they have a pimple or something, that'll like show in their performance. But I think it's really smart though to like put them get them to perform, especially if there's like a narrative scene too. Like get them comfy with where they are comfortable in performing.
I'm curious for Scott. Like I'm thinking of the Rihanna video again. That one you were capturing this like really cool choreographed sequence that I believe Jaquel Knight was the choreographer of that. So where do you place yourself in that situation? Obviously the choreography is not something that you can really change, I don't think.
No.
So what are you looking for in those moments?
In that, with that, the way we did that was we gave Jaquel a video camera, so that with Malik, the DP, they could kind of like work out the way to, because it's basically one shot. It's not one shot, but it's like 2 or 3 shots. And I really wanted it to feel like the DP was dancing with Meta. And it had to be like that visceral. So Jaquel like had a video camera, and part of him designing the choreography was also like where the camera would be. So he was like really involved in like designing those shots. And then we just did that in rehearsal. And Jaquel, as he was like dancing with Meta, would like be dancing with the camera. And then Malik would kind of do that. And then that, I think, is what gave it that kind of like, it's just like very in your face kind of like visceral feeling.
And at that point, you're just sort of trusting that to unfold. Like you're not. Were you watching each take and then like going like, let's do this again, but this time, like, were you giving notes on any of that stuff?
Yeah, I don't remember what they were. They were probably like timing things, but I mean, by the time we were shooting that, the choreography was like so nailed. Like I didn't have anything to say about what they were doing because they were killing it. So it was really just like at that point, like it was just like minutia. But during the rehearsals, like figuring it out, then there was like feedback around like maybe like where the camera would go or like what the geography of the place we were shooting was and how we could use that. And
Another video I encourage everyone to go watch. Jonah, did you want to add anything to that? I saw you kind of, or if not, that's
no, yeah, totally agree.
Last thing I'll say about the shoot before we move on to post-production, I'm just curious, and we can do this sort of rapid fire. Is there a spot on set that you like to stand? Like, start with Eva. Like, are you more of like, I need to be next to the artist, I need to be by the camera, I need to be by a monitor? Like, is there something traditional or a go-to?
I tend to be like on a handheld monitor close to the artist, and somehow I end up very close to the ground, like crouching or sitting on the ground, like, inevitably. What
are you, Scott?
I don't know.
Is it different each time?
Yeah, probably. It probably just depends on. Yeah.
All right. What about you, LeSean?
Handheld, closest to action as possible.
And by that you mean like if you're doing performance, you want to be close to the artist?
Yeah, close to the artist, close to camera. I'll always have a handheld monitor.
And is that proximity to the artist, is that for them? Is that for you? Like, do you feel like they need to have you close so that they can kind of gauge how they're doing? Or like, what's the reasoning behind wanting to be close to it?
Yeah, good question. I think I just feel like I'm just more in it. So it'd be more for me. I just feel like I'm closer to the action. I feel like I can better read the energy that way.
What about you, Ivy?
I'm all over the place. I have a handheld, and sometimes I like to be really close to the artist, and especially if they're performing, they're doing a take, I want them to be able to see me, because often I'm like, giving them the like gassing them up as they're doing it, but I'll also then like put down my handheld, run around, lose my clipboard. I want to go and check it out by the client monitor. Like I like to kind of experience it. Like, okay, I'm in it, but now I want to look at it like this. I'm chaotic and I lose all my shit. But yeah, I like it like that.
Love it. Jonah?
like verbatim same as Eva, handheld, up close, crouched. And I think
Love this crouch situation.
for me, the crouch boils down to I don't want them to see me, so I don't throw them off, but I want them to feel that I'm nearby.
Very cool. All right, that's really interesting. Let's we've got a little bit of time. We'll talk about post production, and then I want to open it up to some questions. So start thinking about questions if you have them. I think post production is sort of the last. If you're on the artist or the label side, that's kind of their last chance of kind of giving input on a project. Obviously, everything's been shot. I'm curious. Maybe we'll start from the other end because I feel like I'm always starting with Eva. So I'm sorry. I'll start with Jonah. How do you balance sort of artist requests and label requests with sort of your own artistic intentions, or can you think of an example where there was a note that came through and you're like, we can't do this, but you have to somehow maneuver that?
It's definitely a give and take, and I feel like everyone here is going to agree that you kind of learn it the hard way. Early on, you are really, really adamant about your vision and wanting to push through the edit that's in your mind, but then eventually learn the lesson that it's not your video. You're just there making the best piece for the artist. And once you accept that, you start being able to find compromises of a give and a take. And I think there is a language when you get into the edit sessions. For me, it's always better when you can get on with the decision maker on a live session rather than doing frame.io links back and forth. If you can subtly suggest ideas and make it feel like it's coming from them, I find it's the best way to get your ideas through. But there are projects that you eventually just kind of write off in your mind as not being exactly how you imagine. And that's okay, because we have the ability to move on to the next thing. So sometimes you can be precious, but oftentimes you need to be willing to give that up as well. And that applies even more so in commercials.
Right. Evie, you mentioned, now you bring your editor to set. So that's something I've never done. So I'm curious to know sort of the purpose of that. And then also, how do you then, you have a process in post and how you manage sort of client or label notes and artist notes?
Yeah, for the notes, I've been actually quite lucky that usually they're like, I don't like the way I look in this shot. Can you use a different shot of me? Or I have a pimple. The times where I've had some notes from the artist or the label, or the artist actually, where I was like, I would try and be like, but this way, and lucky I have that one-to-one relationship with a lot of them. But yeah, I think Jonah said, it's their video at the end. And honestly, I think a lot of times you look back on the changes they made, if it's coming from the artist, you're like, you guys know your vision. You guys know your brand. And a lot of times, I wasn't mad about the changes. It didn't really, really change my my vision. And it probably was kind of better. Having my editor on set, I think it's more so if I start to I'm shielding everyone from seeing if I'm starting to internally freak out or if something's not going my way. But I think my editor knows, because we spend so long cutting, and knows my shots and knows I cut it, if there's a moment where she has to be like, hey. She's the only one that will see, knows that she just kind of just protects the vision. Don't cut that shot. Don't cut that shot. I need that shot. If you cut that shot, I'll kill you.
This strong language. Also, we need to sidebar normalize pimples in music videos. So there's a second note about artists not liking their pimples. LeSean, do you have any sort of thoughts on the post-production process?
Yeah, I haven't had anything too crazy in post. I find 9 times out of 10 they don't like how they look in a take or in a moment, and we just swap that out, and it's usually pretty chill.
Scott, do you treat how I guess different is the post process for you on a music video than, let's say, a commercial, because you do a lot of commercial work as well?
Yeah, commercials are where things get ruined by bad notes, I think. I don't think I've ever had that happen in a music.
We got to protect music videos.
Music videos, it's been pretty, like everyone else has said, it's just the biggest notes have been, is there a better take of me singing that part? Or really, really minor things. I think I've never had a note from label or anyone on a music video where it's been detrimental, or I felt it was detrimental and the integrity of the project was lessened or something like that. On commercials, it happens a lot.
Eva, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I agree. It's unrecognized. A commercial is unrecognizable by the time it's gone through the thresher. But music videos, they should know what they're in for, I guess, when you're making it or something. So I've never had any any weird. I agree. Like it's usually just someone wants a different take.
Have any of you, and this will be my last question before we open it up to Q&A, have any of you had a video shelved, like where you've edited and then like label for whatever reason took it away? I feel like I saw some like laughing and some nodding. So have you had a video shelved?
Yeah, I think like one of my favorite videos I ever made was shelved, and it was for Tierra Whack.
Okay. Oh wow.
I don't
Can
know.
you like? Is there any chance that will ever see the light of day?
Apparently, they were like the commissioner, who I talked to fairly recently, said that like, oh, they're thinking they're gonna put it out, and I was like, okay, that's exciting. And then I don't think.
Oh man, I hope it does. I hope it does, because that'll be crazy. Anybody else?
I had a Sir video shelved that was heartbreaking because I really liked it. I shot it with Adam, and it colored titles, everything.
Wow.
We were on the phone with him, and him and someone from the label, and he was like, "I love the video. I would change nothing. I'm so happy with it." Da, da, da. And we're like, "Okay, great." And the label was like, "Maybe we just change like the title." And we're like, "Okay, cool. We'll just change the font, the title, no worries." And they went radio silent, and then they shelved the video. And then they
Didn't give you a reason.
They ended up reshooting the video with the same concept, but
I
like
hate this so much.
they did like some really weird shit. Yeah. It was all bad, but it is what it is.
I like how I ended the conversation on a bad note. But we love music videos. I think, is there a microphone kind of around? Yeah, we do have a microphone. Okay, cool. So if anybody has any questions, we'd love to hear them. You can just raise your hand, and I think our friend over there will pass you the microphone.
Testing. All right. Sweet, thank you. Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Ziad. I'm a creative director based here in Toronto. Appreciate y'all's insights and sharing space with us today. I work with a lot of different artists, artist teams, and organizations. And, you know, when we think back to music videos we grew up on and we love, we think of, you know, the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, where they had the budgets, they had the champions for them, like MTV, Much Music, and you know, we're in a different time now. Now the conversation's like, do we even bother making a music video? And you know, a lot of us continue with it because we love the process. So you know, when the challenges are there, when it feels like there's obstacles, when it feels like attention spans are the lowest it's ever been, I'd like to ask, what do you feel makes an impactful music video? What do you feel makes the process worth it?
Anybody want to tackle this?
To make or to watch? To make.
I will say, like, there's something I think regardless of the era, I think music videos were often looked at as a sort of a training ground or a launching pad for directors, and I think that is like any video, any opportunity you get to make something where you get to start honing in on your voice, like I think that there's inherent value there to learn and to grow as an artist. And I think music videos specifically, and I'm very biased because I love music videos, is that there's very few opportunities that you get to play in this sort of space where music and visuals sort of where filmmaking and music sort of combine. And so if your question is sort of like what is the value to a director, I think that hasn't changed, honestly. I think that if you're given the opportunity to make a video, I think you should, and you're a filmmaker and you're interested in filmmaking, there is no better film school, in my opinion, than making a music video.
I think it needs to push creative boundaries. You know, I think I get excited to watch videos if it's like a thing I haven't seen before, and then to make a video, to do something that I haven't done before, that's like the most exciting thing, I think. And also the chance that you might fail doing it, probably. Anyone else?
Any other questions? I see one over there.
Thank you for sharing such insights today. I'm an old person that grew up watching music videos on cable television, and I'm curious how you're navigating the times today. Like, I often see video clips now as like memes or just shared on social media. So when you're creating videos now, are you thinking about editing at a different pace? Are you thinking about big visuals? Are you creating in relation to the internet or against it? Just how are you kind of like navigating art and storytelling in this strange attention economy time?
Go ahead, Jonah, I think.
Yeah, I actually was speaking to a music video rep a couple weeks ago about this exactly, and it's something I do in my treatments as well. But social media matters more than ever, and having a slide in your treatment talking about how you feel this is going to play, how you're going to do cut downs, applies in commercials as well. It has unfortunately shifted into how can you make this content easy to consume in a couple of seconds for these tighter attention spans. To me, I don't see it necessarily as a hindrance. I still think I can make my art. I just need to think about how I can cut down that art in maybe a way I don't like, but that's the cost of being able to make music videos. And yeah.
I used to worry about like where the video would be seen. Like it would, we'd make it and be like, okay, where's it gonna launch? This is like maybe 10 years ago. Like, what's the website that's gonna launch the video, and then who's gonna do a write up on the video and stuff. And now it's so it's so crazy that I actually kind of feel the opposite way, that I only want to make it for me, and then I like, you feel like you're throwing it into a void or something when it goes online, but it just needs to be a part of my body of work. That's where I'm at. Like, it just needs to be something that I guess ultimately it's like on your reel, and then it's like, people will see it if they're going to look at your work for some other reason or something. But yeah, I don't participate in that, and certainly like cut downs and all of that, like the sort of content of it is a thing, but yeah, I try not to let that enter my mind personally.
Any other questions? Oh, there we go, one over here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for sharing with us today. So I am a budding music video director myself. I'm wondering if any of you could share with us a time that perhaps on your journey as a music video director, you felt like you plateaued, and how you pushed through that to get to where you are today.
It's a very personal question, I feel. I think it's like a deep fear that everyone has, right? That it's like, oh fuck, is this it? Is this the peak of it? Yeah. How do you guys? What's your relationship with that?
But I already did feel that, and I stopped making music videos. And I think, I don't know, I took like a 5-year break, and then it just kind of has been coming back naturally as a reaction to making commercials and stuff. It's just like a thing that you just do for yourself, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I started doing a lot of commercials, and then recently I was like, man, I want to do a music video again. You just kind of have the yearning for that freedom and that like trust that you have as a director. It's a very different space that you're in as a director, specifically between commercials and music videos. So I think sometimes you just have to play in a different sandbox for a second and then come back to the music video sandbox.
For me too, like with the budgets and everything, I found myself for a bit like pandering to the artist or the whatever, like being like, this is the type of music video I should be making to make this artist get more views or whatever. And I got creatively kind of plateaued. I was like, I don't even like this treatment. And it was when I pivoted back and said, what do I want to make? Like, what am I excited? This isn't that much money. I like this song. This artist super like stoked. It's super fun to work with. What do I actually want to do? Like something new. And that was kind of a nice exercise to kind of bring me out of that.
I just kind of accept that the industry ebbs and flows, and I can't rely on it. You go through so many phases where suddenly you're not landing jobs, or you go do a job that makes you never want to do another video again. But then time passes and you start romanticizing the journey, and you're like, I want to go back and do that some more. And then as long as you have that inkling of wanting to do it and you start pitching again, eventually like something will hit. You just need to keep trying.
Yeah, I think it also helps to, if you can, which is not easy, sort of decoupling your self-worth from this thing that you're making. and knowing that there is no such thing as a plateauing. No one gets to tell you when you're not an artist, when you're not a creative person. I know you're talking about it kind of more from a career standpoint, but I think that's when you kind of let go a little bit of that. There's some magic there. I don't know if it's like a degaff, like I don't give a fuck attitude that starts to weirdly magically makes it look like the universe is kind of on your side again when you stop caring. But I think there is something to that. I mean, it's a little bit of what Jonah was saying, kind of like knowing that there's forces outside of your control. So just like focusing, I tend to focus on what I'm working on, and that's my craft, I guess, and not really thinking too much about like, am I booking music videos? Am I booking a commercial? Any thoughts, Scott, on your end?
Yeah, no, I think when I was like 25 or something like that, I probably there's a lot more of like my ego involved in like, oh, I want to be Romain Gavras or I want to be Jonathan Glazer or Michel Gondry or something, and like be known. And like, I don't know, I think like at a certain point, maybe it was like even having a kid or something, like my perspective just changed around that. I don't really care about like that. So I don't know what the plateau would be. The plateau, that kind of like language is like not even, doesn't feel that relevant to me. There was a few years where I hadn't done a music video in a really long time, and I didn't know if I would. But then I was like saying like, yeah, there was just like, I really want to do them again. So then I started like actively.
Yeah, I remember being like super excited when you put the Casey Musgrave videos. I'm like, oh, we're finally getting some more Scott Cudmore videos.
Thank you.
Any other questions? That was a good question, by the way. Thank you. I mean, they're all been great questions so far. Anybody else? I can't really see because there's a light in my face, so I'm assuming that.
Hi. I have a background in directing TV and film. I have no experience with music videos, but I've noticed that most of you have experience also doing short films. And I was just wondering, what are some differences between your process in making music videos versus shorts that you like and that you don't like? So differences between music videos and making your shorts.
Recording audio. So the music is doing all the heavy lifting, like with a music video, like the emotion's already baked in, and this, there's your focus on the visual storytelling. So that's the kind of obvious answer. But personally, my videos are very narrative. Like I always thought of making videos as a way to make films, like a way to make narrative. Like I didn't do a performance video till very later on. So for me, I see them kind of as the same, but you just have more time to shoot a music, or like, a short, when you're recording audio, it takes more time. So it's just kind of like a faster process with shooting music videos.
Yeah, I think it's like, I think that's accurate. I think there's like technical considerations and like other things that you have to think about if you're directing like a narrative. Say it's like a scene in a house that takes place over a day, but you're shooting it over like a week. So then you got to be thinking about like time of day and like, how you're going to light these things so that like the story makes sense, that you don't really have to think about in music videos. And I think there's like a number of different impacts like that happen in narrative filmmaking that don't necessarily happen in a 1-day, 2-day music video shoot. But yeah, I don't know.
Fair enough. Jonah, I know you've been working on some short films as well.
Yeah, no,
you've been doing kind of in tandem, like you've been going back and forth, right, between music videos and shorts. How's that been? What's the differences there?
I mean, I think Scott, you kind of nailed it. There's so much leniency in music videos because if you don't get story beats to make sense, you cut away to a performance shot and you come back and you're good to go. But yeah, in a short film, you don't have that. There's a lot more pressure in terms of everything making sense, and audiences have a really good eye when you watch a narrative piece as to like if the performances aren't good, if the cut feels weird, if the score feels too on the nose, if the sound design isn't working. And there's just more, I guess, band-aid solutions you can do in music videos. But the flip side of that is the short is something, at least for me, is something that feels like it's purely me, whereas there's no client, there's no one in the other room saying this frame is too dark. I get to make these decisions and create the piece that I have in my mind. And to me, that's very rewarding. So yeah, I think there's like benefits and not benefits to both forms.
Do we have time for more questions? Oh, we don't. All right, we're going to wrap up. So I'm just going to do one quick thing before we wrap up, which is just to talk really quickly. Again, thank you so much for the Toronto International Music Video Festival for hosting us and for allowing us to have this conversation. A little quick note about We Direct Music Videos. We are a very small grassroots, non-hierarchical group of directors who are sort of spearheading this initiative. And we are sort of in the process of hosting more events. I think last month we did one with Toronto International Music Video Festival. We had a community hangout. Some of you might have come to that. So do follow us on Instagram. I think there's like an Instagram thing up there. If you want to find out about other events that we're going to be hosting locally. And then, like I mentioned, go to WeDirectMusicVideos.org to find out more about the sort of the global events and get access to the treatment database and all that stuff. And lastly, if you are interested in helping out, we're always looking for people to help us out with organization. I want to thank actually Evie and Leah, who've been helping me with everything leading up to today's panel as well, and the event last month. So yeah, either reach out to me or message us on the We Direct Music Video Instagram account. There's also Instagram accounts for everybody here. So if you're interested in following them, take a photo of that and follow them on Instagram. Thank you so much, all of you. I really appreciate it. That was great. Thank you, everybody.
Yo, dap me up. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Make some noise for our panelists and our moderator one more time. For anyone that has not been here over the last 2 days, allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Akil McKenzie, and I'm your host for the Toronto International Music Video Festival. Woo!